metric question. Let's check what kind of metric question. If you look at the question here, it say that whose product? I mean, you are multiplying two metrics, so it's a multiplication of the metric for this question. Now, let's look at what the question wants. He say score by each team. Basically, the resultant metric, if we multiply the two metrics here, the resultant metric should show you the total marks scored by Harry. Why? Because it's each team. So what we want is, here's Harry, the total marks scored by Harry, stroller, road runner, or Olympian. Okay, that means it's 1 times 4, or we can also do it 4 times 1. That means the total marks scored by Harrier, stroller, road runner, and Olympian. Okay, got it? Now, the next thing we have to look at is definitely we hope we can form one of the metric using this table without altering the order, exactly the same. That means this one is actually 4 times 4. Okay, now the point allocation metric would be either, we can put it as 4 times 1 times 4, or we can put it as 4 times 1. Okay, that will depend, which one to use will depend on the resultant metric, the order of the resultant metric you want to achieve. Okay, now let's come back to this. The important thing is, when you form the matrix, the two matrices, okay, make sure when you do the multiplication, the 6 must multiply with the 5, the 3 must multiply with the 3 here, because second placing you get 3 points. Okay, then the third placing you get 2 points, so it's 1 times 2. So the other important point we have to look at is, we do not want to change this matrix. We don't want to alter the row to become the column, or the column become the row. We want to keep it so that we have less work required, and then the chances of making mistake will be reduced. Because if you rearrange, you can make mistake. Okay, so we want to maintain in this order. So if you want the result to 1 times 4, then you have to take, because this 1 comes from the row of the first matrix. Okay, so if you want the resultant metric to be in this way, then it has to be 1 times 4. Okay, for this metric, the marks allocation matrix. Now, then time 4 by 4. Okay, so if you consider, so 4 times 4, yes, you can multiply, so you can have a resultant matrix. Then you have the first row, the row of the first matrix will form the row of the resultant matrix, and then you have the column of the second matrix which form the column of the resultant matrix. Okay, let's look fine. Now let's see whether the multiplication makes sense. You got a 5 point here if you get a first place. Then you have 3 point. Then you have 2. You have 1. Okay. Now, if you multiply with this matrix, okay. Now, 6. Okay, if you follow the order, multiplication will be 5 times 6, and then 3 times 3. Does see whether it makes sense? Okay, 5 point allocate for first place, correct. Then 3 point for second place. But this 3 times 3, this one actually is not the second place of Harris. It's actually the first place for Solar. So you are taking the 3 mark to allocate for the first place. That means this arrangement is wrong. If you want to still to continue in this format, what you have to do is you have to take the row, which is 6, 3, 1, 2, and put it as the column. Okay, that means 6, 3, 1, 2. Okay, now we look at the multiplication. So 5 point allocate for first place, which is 6 times. 3 point allocate for second place, which is 3 times. Okay, so you can see if you reorganize these, if you multiply, then it generates a resultant matrix of 1 times 4, which makes sense. Okay, but in this case, you have to rearrange this table, making the row to become the column, and the column become the row, which is, as I said earlier, will increase more work, chances of making mistake. Okay, so you still can go ahead and do it this way. Let's look at another option where you don't need to alter this column and row for this matrix. This one, if you choose 1 times 4, then you have no choice. You have to make a change here in the row, sort the row with the column, and the column with the row. But now look at another possibility whereby we do not need to change the row. We only sort the row and the column. Okay, now the option will be 4 times 1. Now look at how we're going to do this. 4 comes from the matrix, the first matrix, 4 rows. So it has to be 4 times 4. Okay, time, here the 4 times 1. Okay, let's check whether is there any problem. 4 and 4 same, so that's the resultant matrix. 4 here give you the row of the resultant matrix, and then the column here give you the column of the resultant matrix. Okay, now let's see whether the multiplication makes sense. If I make the point allocation as a column matrix, then it will be 5, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now let's look at 6, 3, 1, 2. 6, 3, 1, 2. Now let's look at the multiplication. So the multiplication will go in this manner: 6 times 5, 3 times 3, 1 times 2, 2 times 1. Okay, 6 times first place multiplied by the point allocation is 5. Correct. 3 times second place multiplied by 3, the point allocated for second place 3. Correct the multiplication. Then third place 1 time, he multiplied by 2, which is 2 points for third place. So this arrangement is correct. And you can see 6, 3, 1, 2, we do not need to sort the row with the column for this matrix. So if you want to get the result, you just keep this, create this as the first matrix with 4 times 4, multiply with the point allocation as a column matrix. Okay, 4 times 1, and you get the resultant matrix of 4 times 1. And this is what the question wants. That means finally what you get here, this first element will be the total mark obtained for Harris. Okay, this one is actually column, row 1, column 1. So it's actually this. Let's check whether the multiplication correct. Is row 1, then this one is column 1. Okay, Okay, so it's correct. So this gives you the first element, gives you the total mark obtained for like Harris. Okay, similarly, if you do the second row and you multiply by this same column metric, you will get the total mark obtained by the team stroller. Okay, so that's it. So this resultant metric will give you this answer. Now, evaluate this product of metric. So basically asking you to multiply and get the value here. The first part of the question is to show this and this only. Okay? Then after that, the last the part 2 will be to obtain the resultant matrix. Okay? So that's it.